Hi everyone, this is Instructor Hernandez, and this video lecture is on revision and editing. As we have reviewed with the first two essays, the writing process consists of several steps. And at this point, we have already gone through the first four, and we ended Wednesday's class with getting response when we did the peer review for essay number 3. So now you should be at the stage in the writing process where you are taking stock of the feedback that you've been given on your essay and revising. And after you have revised your draft, you want to then move on to editing and proofreading for the final draft. So first we'll talk about how to take stock of the feedback you've received and revise your essay. Remember, as we've discussed, you don't necessarily need to incorporate all of the feedback that you have received, but you do want to consider most of the comments that you've been given on your essay. And if you weren't able to participate in the peer review in Wednesday's class, then hopefully you've been able to meet with a tutor or someone else that has been able to review your essay and give you feedback. So if you missed the peer review, but you met with a tutor or someone else, then you can consider their comments when you're taking stock and revising. So it's important to evaluate all the comments that you receive on your essay with an open mind, even if you initially disagree with those comments, or if you have a hard time hearing constructive criticism. I know that it can be difficult when people tell you less than favorable things about your writing because our writing can be very personal and it can be difficult to hear the things that we are not doing well in our essay. However, if there is consistent feedback that you've been given, then those are definitely comments that you want to consider for the final draft. So if more than one person has read your essay and they've made similar comments, those are comments that I would keep in mind when revising. You also want to think about which comments make the most sense to you. So for instance, if you were already considering revising your introduction and then someone that reads your essay tells you the same thing, this is definitely a step that you will want to take in the revising process. That being said, there probably will be some comments that you can disregard. So comments that you don't find very helpful or specific. Also comments that you disagree with. When people look at your writing, their opinion can be subjective. So if you feel that you have a very strong conclusion, for instance, and someone else reads your essay and they think that your conclusion should have gone in a different direction, then that is a choice that you can make as the writer of this essay. You can evaluate the comments that someone gave you and consider whether or not they make the most sense to you or whether or not they're valid in terms of revising your essay. And keep in mind the goals of revision, which we have gone over with essays number 1 and 2 as well. So at this stage in the writing process, hopefully you're working with a polished draft. If you are, then your task should be fairly simple. You are just going to sharpen and polish what you already have done. However, I know that some of you were thinking of starting your essay all over at this point, of doing further research, or changing the focus of your essay. And since this is a research paper, that can definitely happen. Research papers can be more complicated to write than other essays. So if you're not polishing what you already have done and you're starting from scratch, then you want to go back and review the other steps of the writing process that include drafting until you get back to this point of revision. When we're revising our essays, we're also focusing our attention on specific aspects. And again, this applies to you if you are not starting all over, if you're just polishing the draft that you already have. you may not necessarily need to revise every section of your draft. You might just need to focus on very specific elements. Once you have taken into consideration the comments that you received during peer review or tutoring session, and you've noticed which specific aspects of your essay you need to revise, then you want to make a revision plan. So as we have discussed, you don't want to try to revise your entire essay in one sitting, especially if you have a considerable amount of work to do. The final draft is due next Wednesday, April 20th, so you want to keep that in mind when you're making your revision plan. So as I've mentioned before, you want to take into consideration any other work that you have to do for your other classes, your work schedule if you work outside of school, or any other obligations you have that are going to take up your time. And once you've done that, you want to think about how much time you have to devote to your essay for this class and what you can accomplish. In other words, what can you revise during this amount of time? And from there, create a step-by-step plan of what you need to do. It might be helpful for some of you to work on a specific section of your essay a little bit each day, or if you don't have a lot of time between now and next Wednesday, to take a look at your schedule and see when can you block out a few hours so that you can work on your revision for your essay. And keep in mind that when we are revising, there are specific tasks that we often will focus our attention on. You might be doing all three of these, or you might just be doing one or two, but either way, these should definitely be a part of your revision plan, because the more specific your plan is, then the more effective it will be. So let's go over each one of these revision tasks again. So first is cutting. Cutting material can be helpful when you need to sharpen your essay's focus. So if you're given feedback during our peer review session or during a tutoring session that your essay needs more focus, then you want to think about what material can you take out. In other words, is there anything in your essay that is repetitive or unnecessary information? And when it comes to cutting material, some of you may be cutting specific sentences or phrases, while some of you may be cutting entire paragraphs. And as I've said before, if you're cutting a lot of material out, I wouldn't get rid of this material right away. I would save anything that I cut from my essay on another Word document just in case you want to add some of that material back in or you want to refer to it at a later time. In addition to cutting, adding is also a very common revision task. So I would recommend that this is part of your revision plan if you were told that you need to clarify information or specific points in your essay, or if your essay needs to be further developed. Adding is especially important if you're drastically under the word count. So some of you may have not yet incorporated your research into your essay. So that would definitely be something that you want to add in for the final draft. And when you're adding in research, you want to be strategic about where you are adding that research. So remember, research should be treated as any other supporting detail. So once you have made a point in your essay or a specific claim, then you want to use your research to support that idea. Or you can use research as a counter argument. So if you are discussing a counter argument in your essay and you don't have that in your preliminary draft, you can add in a paragraph that discusses your counter argument for the final draft. And lastly, there is reordering. So if you're told that your essay needs better organization or structure, or perhaps your paragraphs themselves need to be better organized, then reordering should be part of your revision plan. When we reorganize the material that is in our essay, it can help the essay flow more smoothly overall. Some students may need to reorder the sequence of their paragraphs. So in other words, they're going to reorder their entire essay structure. Whereas some other students might be reordering the sentences within specific paragraphs. And as I've mentioned before, when you are reordering, it might be easier to start with a blank document than trying to work within the draft that you already have. I would especially recommend this if you are working on the overall essay structure and you're thinking about reordering the sequence of your paragraphs. It also might be helpful to create a brief outline before you start reordering your essay on a blank document. So at this point in the video lecture, I would like you to pause here and to take a few minutes and think about what your revision plan will be and write down or type up a plan for yourself. So this should not only include the specific revision tasks that you need to do, such as adding, cutting, or reordering, but also a timeline, in other words, how you will accomplish that between now and next Wednesday. And once you're finished with your revision plan, I would like you to post it on Canvas. Now that you've completed your revision plan and posted it on Canvas, let's talk about editing and proofreading, which is the final stage of the writing process. So first, we're going to talk about how to edit paragraphs. When we're editing paragraphs, we're working on the specific details within that paragraphs. So this can refer to sentences, word choice, and punctuation. And the goal of editing is to make your writing as clear as possible. So this should be something you're doing after you've taken a look at your draft and you've thought about how to revise it. Remember, revision refers to adding in more material or supporting details, cutting out any material that's unnecessary or repetitive, or rethinking the structure of your essay and paragraphs. Once you've done that, you want to make sure that your writing is as clear as possible. So this is where you're looking very closely at your sentence structure, your word choice, and your punctuation. And at this stage in the writing process, it can be very helpful to meet with a writing tutor, such as a grammar expert, that can help you learn how to edit your own essay. When we're editing paragraphs, we want to pay attention to the focus of each paragraph. So as we have gone over throughout the semester, each paragraph should be focused on one point. If you're writing a paragraph on a subtopic related to your essay's topic, and that paragraph is starting to get very lengthy, you might want to consider starting a new paragraph, even if you're still discussing the same subtopic. It's also helpful if your paragraphs have topic sentences that tell the reader what that paragraph is going to be about. So if you take a look at your paragraphs and you can't identify clear topic sentences, then I would recommend adding those for the final draft. And keep in mind, it's not enough to just have a clear topic sentence at the beginning of a paragraph, but the rest of the sentences in that paragraph should all relate back to that topic sentence. So if you are reading your paragraphs and you find any sentences that don't relate to the topic sentence, those are sentences that should be revised or taken out. You also want to take a look at your paragraphs and think about how they connect to each other. So, are your paragraphs moving smoothly as you discuss one subtopic to the next? Are you connecting the ideas so that your essay overall has a very clear structure? If you feel like your paragraphs are not flowing smoothly from one thought to the next, then you may want to consider adding transitions between your paragraphs. And transition sentences can come at the end of a paragraph or at the beginning of a paragraph. If you have a transition sentence at the beginning of a paragraph, it can also serve as a topic sentence. So remember, a transition sentence will connect one paragraph to the next. It will mention the topic that you've just discussed and the topic that you're now moving on to. We also took a look at different ways you can open your essay to capture your audience's attention at the very beginning. So now that you're in the final stage of the writing process, take a look back at your introduction and consider whether or not you have an effective opening. So, in other words, does it capture the audience's attention right away? Does it introduce your topic in a creative way? Those are all different functions of an effective opening paragraph. And lastly, you also want to look at your conclusion and consider how strongly you're ending your essay. We also went over some strategies for concluding your essay that go beyond summarizing your main point. So you can look ahead and make predictions about your topic. You can have a call to action, or you can summarize the implications or the larger meaning of your topic. Those are all ways that you can end your essay on a strong note without summarizing your thesis statement. Now that we've talked about editing paragraphs, let's discuss editing sentences. So, as we have gone over, when we're talking about editing sentences, we're focusing on sentence structure, grammar, and punctuation. Sentence fragments and run-ons are two of the most common sentence structure errors that happen in writing. So if these are errors that have been noted on your essays and you've noticed that you have a tendency to either have sentence fragments or run-ons, then you want to pay attention to these and see if you have any of these types of sentence errors in essay number 3. You also want to make sure that your sentences are varied in terms of structure and length. So in other words, your sentence structure should not be the same for every sentence in your essay, because that can make your writing sound repetitive. Additionally, if you have any lists or series in your sentences, so if you're listing different reasons, for example, you want to make sure that those lists are in parallel form. And you can learn more about all of these elements in the Little Seagull Handbook if you take a look at the section on editing. It would also be helpful to review your sentences with a grammar expert at the LRC because they can point out specific things in your sentences that aren't necessarily covered here. So before you submit your essay, you want to make sure to proofread it carefully to catch any final typos or errors or things that you want to clear up before you submit your essay. And you can do this in a number of ways. If you are using grammar check or spell check, that can be helpful to capture things that we may miss when we're reading our essay. But keep in mind, if you're using some type of computer program for checking your spelling or grammar, these programs are not always accurate. The best option would be to make an appointment with a grammar expert at the LRC. And remember that you can meet with someone in person or online. And there are also opportunities to meet with someone over the weekend. So hopefully you'll find an option that works for you. And also, if you have not yet met with a tutor this semester, that's definitely something you want to do for essay number 3. So remember, you are required to complete one tutoring visit for the semester, and any additional visits will count as extra credit. So if you haven't met with a tutor yet, you want to make sure to do that so you can get your required tutoring visit completed. If you've already met with a tutor, then you should still meet with one for essay number 3 as well, because you'll get extra credit. Lastly, if you're unable to meet with a tutor for whatever reason, but you have a friend or family member or someone close to you that is a good writer or a good proofreader, you can always ask them to take a look at your essay and just tell you what is clear and what is not. But remember, it's more helpful to you if you're the one making any corrections or revisions to your essays rather than giving your essay to someone else to fix. So those are the different steps of the revision and editing processes. I will make another video on MLA format, so please make sure to watch that one as well.